welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Richey of the MHRT Network. I think I might be lying. Anywho, this over here, over on my right, is Jack Kenna representing his Las Vegas Raiders.
Salute,
and down
nation.
directly below is DZ repping the LA Chargers. We are still working out details on getting a fourth back on the show, repping the but nonetheless, certainly and inarguably the best in the division, at least to date. So, Jack, over to you. We're going to start off the show as we kind of spoke about in the green room behind the scenes. I'm going to exit stage left to kind of get myself back on track. DZ and Jack, can you take over for a little bit, introduce the show, and go from there?
Sounds good, man.
Awesome.
Salute, Marcus.
Hey, let's salute to the chat. Thank you guys for joining in on the Wild Wild West show. I see some of my family out there. And Bob, I'm Jack Kenna. That's Captain Jack. I just go on his channel, so we'll salute to Captain Jack as well. Hey, there's my boy. We got Raider Shield family, a.k.a. 93 Navman, MB. Salute. Kona. Wait, Kona. Cheers, brother. Frank Weber.
Cheers, Kona.
So it's good to see all you guys hopping in. Hopefully we'll get a lot more hopping in here too. And on this one, this was just an idea I brought up like a week or so ago, just to kind of talk about it so we can throw a little shade on each other's teams and have a little fun with it. And it's a little still too early to still kind of do this, but the draft is over. So, I mean, the rookies, it's always going to be a lot of what ifs. You don't know, but you kind of know. So I just want to talk about like the positional rankings,
kind of more come back to it too, like later in the season or, follow up like with our predictions and how they fell out, Jack.
Absolutely. Hey, Nav, got my new phone. So yeah, I hope it sounds good, bro. So that way I'm not dying out here, man. For you guys, for those who know me, I always get joked about my phone's going to die because my phone was older. And then doing Richie's show, which normally lasts like a little over 2 hours, I'd have to set out in my backyard and actually have the power cord plugged in. And then over time, that thing wiggles around and then finally it just stopped taking a charge at all.
That's how these phone companies get you, man. It's like everything's going great. Your phone works great. It's just the battery life. And now these batteries, I think it's like, I don't know, $60 to $100 to get them replaced. And at that time, it's not even worth it. It's a big scam.
MB, it's Jack Kenna. It's not Captain Jack. I just use his channel. I just use the platform. Captain Jack is like the guy who looks like a pirate. When you watch the Raider games, he goes to most of the games. Got this big white beard. So during Christmas, you can throw a Santa hat and a Santa suit on him, and he would look like Santa Claus. God damn! I hope
Santa from hell.
I don't look like him.
Krampus. That's Captain Jack.
Krampus. Oh, that is funny, dude. That is funny. The first group, I think it's going to be pretty simple. Let's start off with the quarterbacks, and everyone in the chat, post, like what you think 1 through 4. We're, since there's not a Chiefs host on here, so we're going to kind of avoid the Chiefs. But in this first category, we can put the Chiefs. We can bag on the Chiefs too. So you know what? They don't have a host. We can always throw them under the bus too. So that's always fun.
All right, Jack. So give us your 4. Yeah, give us your 4, starting, I guess, from 4 to 1 or however you want to do it.
You want to go? We can go backwards. I don't care. Either way. So number 4, I would have to say, again, quarterback-wise, I'm going to have to go Bo Nix. I'm going to have to go the Broncos, number 4.
I agree with that.
It's like, Bo is – he played very well last year. He came up. He was 3rd in the Rookie of the Year voting. So, he's got a lot of potential. And he impressed, pretty much all of us.
Yeah.
And especially Richie, who wanted him off the bench, didn't want to, start him. So, but I still think, he's got a lot of room to grow, but he still has a lot to prove. So
yeah, he's only played one season. The only thing I saw, like the knock on him, is last season, and it's kind of hard to judge somebody off one season, in my opinion, especially in the NFL. Was his intermediate throws. He was really inaccurate with his intermediate throws. Those short hitches and all that stuff is really good, and he was really calm, and he's got good pocket presence. And then he can throw the deep ball as well. So if he can work on those intermediates, those 20-yard throws, he's going to be great. But I think that's also, getting some guys in there. We'll see how it goes. But
yeah, getting that support
they
pass
did have
around
a
him.
good wide receiver core last year, what I thought was good. But Richie might disagree with me.
Yeah, I might have to disagree with you too, a little bit on that one. I mean, I'm not going to go wide receivers yet, but compared to other teams in the AFC West, but I think they've done a good job in I think all the teams actually have done a good job of bringing more supporting players on the offense. But I still have to have him, until he proves me wrong, out of the 4 quarterbacks that are there. He's young. He's on a rookie deal, which is, that's definitely going to, help Denver. But in the way of just ranking the positional group overall, I still got to give him a number 4. And then, number 3, I'm going to have to go my own team on that one. I'm going to go with the Raiders. I hate to say it. I hate to say it's number 3. Geno was the biggest pickup the Raiders had this whole offseason. But, I mean, he's an accurate passer. His QBR is only 0.2 of a point lower than Patrick Mahomes. But, looking at the 3 quarterbacks that are left, and I still want to see what Geno does with, again, new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new offensive line coach, and with all these rookies that they're bringing in, I still kind of I want to see it, which I know he'll do well. But compared to what you have, a proven quarterback Geno can run, but your quarterback can run a little better than my quarterback. He's taller. He's proven that he can carry the team on his back. So I would have Herbert, number 2. And of course, you guys, I think you guys spent 5 out of, or 5 picks on the offensive side of the ball to give him a little bit more support. It was kind of lacking last year in the way of the options that he had. But I think with some of the draft picks that you guys picked up and offensive linemen, I think he's going to be even better this year. So,
I'll get into the draft picks later on, but yeah, I agree. Geno, I like Geno. Geno was a Charger for a hot second there, and it just took him a decade to get going, man. And this is the thing about the NFL. It's like these players. You can get drafted wherever, right? But it's all about landing in that right situation. So, sometimes it doesn't work out for the first few years on a team, and then they get traded or they get cut. Some other team picks them up. It takes a while. So, hey, hats off to Geno. It took him literally a decade to get going, and when he landed in Seattle, it seems like he picked up really well. They had some good toys for him to play with, and it's not a new head coach because he's going to be reuniting with his old head coach. So, and then,
which is a great pairing right there.
Yes. And he's got some really good toys to play with in Las Vegas. So, yeah.
Weber, Chewy, Estrada, Sloop Brothers, Ed Winchell. Good to see all you guys in the chat.
Cranky Edward. Just kidding.
Oh, Edward, here's something, interesting. Twin Peaks closed. So we ain't going to see no games this year at Twin Peaks. Kind of sucks.
So, Richie, did you get our first 2? We're going from 4 to 1, and I'm sure you're going to agree with me. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So
Broncos country is definitely not going to be happy with that.
No,
I'll just finish up, and then you guys can talk about your guys' ranking. So again,
sure, go ahead.
just a recap. I had Bo Nix number 4. I have Geno Smith number 3, Herbert number 2, and of course that leaves Patrick Mahomes. But I will say this, with Patrick, last year to win games he had to be Mr. Clutch, and he was Mr. Clutch. And that's something to be said right there. His talent, around him has kind of dropped off, and but he's made those critical throws when the game is on the line, and he's making them.
He knows he's got that clutch gene, which we talked about previous shows. Richie talked also, like I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. Does Herbert have that gene? So what I see Mahomes do in those fourth quarters, like I guess we could all say this, like when we're playing the Chiefs and it's a close game and it's like there's too much time on the clock. You can't give them the ball with that much time on the clock, because we've seen Mahomes and the Chiefs come from, the 20-yard line, march it all the way down, and then just milk it for a field goal or a touchdown or something. But look, I'll be honest, and this might be controversial. Like, I still have Mahomes as the number 1, but he hasn't been playing like the number 1 for probably 2 seasons, in my opinion. He is number 1, through default, probably because of his accolades and them getting their Super Bowl last year, statistically having their worst team. But, he hasn't played like the Mahomes we were used to, like, in the previous seasons, in my opinion. I think there's been other QBs around the league that have outplayed him in the last 2 years. But, it's all this is a team sport, right? So
it's narrowing down. The KC, they kind of switched up, from the offense, just purely offense, super powerhouse, scoring 30 to 40 points a game, to investing on the defense, and then they start losing offensive guys. But I think one of the biggest things that the stat that I was looking at was, man, in QBR, Geno Smith is only 2/10 of a point below him, but Mahomes is still coming up when it's clutch. And he still had like 13 wins last year. So until something like that changes, then we always got to roll with them.
Sorry, important text. Yep.
Ed, what do you mean?
I agree, man. I think we're gonna have to hear from. I'm on par with you with everything you just said. Like that's my list, and I could see Geno. I mean, I'm not Geno, but I could see Bo climbing up that rankings. They've got a really good team coming in, but he's got 1 year under his belt, so that's me. To me, he's a rook. Unless he was Jaden Daniels, then I would move him up, but he's not. And I don't think Richie heard my criticism of Bo. I thought he was really good.
I heard.
You did? Yeah. So I just think that his intermediate passes need to, get a lot better. But other than that, I still have him as 4 right now.
So my comments overall, basically you have to figure out how you want to rank the quarterback position.
Sure.
And it really comes down to what are your criteria. So if we're going to go off of Jack's rankings, then you're going off of analysts that, frankly, I don't much respect anyway. I think
it's not off analysts. That's just my own opinion. Just what my gut tells me. But I thought that was an interesting stat. That was just an interesting stat that I saw.
Right. So where I was going with this is QBR is a made-up statistic based on a multitude of factors. And, Kona, give me one moment. It must have defaulted to, just give me 1 sec here.
I'm getting you good, but
you're coming in better. You were really choppy in the intro, but you sound a lot better now.
There we go. That should be way better. So, basically, QBR is a made-up statistic with some mystery things that are all rolled in together. There is an actual formula. You can look it up, and yes, it is available, and you can see it and all that kind of stuff. So that's fine and good. But the question is whether or not you actually believe in the stat in its totality in terms of how it's calculated and what it represents. I am not let's put it this way. There are certain games where I look at a QBR for a specific quarterback, and their QBR was really bad, but you could objectively look at the plays that quarterback made and said, that quarterback played one heck of a game. The QBR is not representative of how well that quarterback actually played in that specific game. And then you see other games where the QBR was like stupid high, and you're like, that quarterback was trash, like just absolute trash.
Or they're playing a weaker opponent or something.
Yeah. Well, there's all sorts of.
The stats get inflated, and this is like I kind of said this when you were fixing your issues. I kind of went over this like briefly. I said this is a team sport. Like, it kind of sucks doing individual rankings, but it's a fun thing to do because it's like lets you know how everybody stacks up. But there's some quarterbacks like Mahomes, right? Like, he could have a crappy game the whole game, but then, like as Jack alluded to, in the fourth quarter makes a couple clutch throws and they win the game, and you're like, Jesus Christ, dude! Like,
yep.
And you don't even care how bad you played as long as you get the win, right? So
exactly.
And then you look at the garbage time, stuff, and then your padding stats, because all you're going to be doing anyways, if you're losing by a lot, you're going to be throwing the ball a ton.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, so with that in mind, my general take on what we saw from the Broncos was we had very few games where we were blown out last year. There was the Ravens game, which was not good.
I think they've blown everybody out, but yeah.
Pardon me?
They've blown us out too.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're one heck of a team, and they have to, credit where credit's due. They've been well constructed as a football team, so good for them. But overall, when you look at the way that the Broncos played last season, there was very few games where they were runaway games against us. We were always in it, and frankly, most of our games we either won, because we won the majority of them, obviously, with a winning record, or we only lost by like a field goal or less than a
against
field goal.
Us. Yeah, one game where you guys came back roaring, and we're like, oh crap, here we go. And right. I think it was that fluky fair catch. Darius Davis had to do the fair catch, got hit by one of your guys, and then they kicked the field goal. Do you remember that, Jack? It was like, I've never seen it in my life.
Yes.
I have not watched any of the Broncos Chargers game. Actually, I did watch one Broncos game last year.
It was a special teams rule that has not been called since like the 70s or something.
It was
like
some crazy thing. Yeah. You don't remember it? So it was like Darius Davis heads up play. He must have saw the Broncos coming. He was like, look, dude, this guy's going to lay me out or something. But he did a fair catch, right? Still gets nailed, but I'm surprised Rick has a silver can closet Raider. Okay, hey, look, this is a fun
closet Raider fan out there. I'm so sorry. Go ahead, DZ.
Yeah,
I want to jump in afterwards.
So I don't know how old Raider Shield is, but I'm 41. There's a picture of me, and I'll find it. Look, I'm a diehard Chargers fan, but there's a picture of me when I was a little kid. And look, I don't care what people say. I'm head to toe in Raiders gear. Because if you know, back in the day, the Raiders was it was like a cultural thing, right? It was like a cultural icon or whatever. And I don't know what my mom was thinking, but she knew I was a Bo Jackson fan. I used to have a giant Bo Jackson poster over my bed. Nice. I love Bo Jackson. Still love him. I feel bad for the guy about his knees. I think it was hips or knees, one of the two. Hip. And so I have these Oakland Raider, little sweats and an Oakland Raider t-shirt. And I didn't have a hat, but there's a picture. And I think before my grandmother passed away, she sent us some pictures, and I saw that picture. I was like, holy, I hope this never gets out. But to be honest, I don't really care because it is what it is. But that picture was right before, because I don't say I was born a Chargers fan, even though I'm from San Diego. It's right when I started understanding the game of football. So for me, that was 7 years old. So that picture was pre 7 years old. But so Yeah, no, I've been always drinking Colorado Kool-Aids for a long time, Raider Shield.
Yeah, way to call that out, bro. I love it. So it's kind of funny, all the Raider guys in this chat, and I've told you guys kind of behind the scenes about the closet. He says he's a Chargers fan. He won't come on this show.
I haven't seen this fucker, so I don't claim him.
It's Piano Man. I keep telling him, like, why don't you just show up on this show instead of going on Raider shows? And then, I got to kick you off the show because you're talking smack to like other Raider fans or the host or whatever. It's like, and I try not to kick him off, and I just keep trying to encourage him to come over here and support you, DZ. And it's like, he never shows up. And so it's kind of funny, Nav knows this. He does his own show, which I've gone on, many times, but in a lot of other channels, but he only hops in on Raider shows. So we call him the closet Raider fan.
Yeah, he must be. We cut off Richie, didn't we? Richie, we cut twice. I apologize.
Yeah. But so here's the thing. Back to the quarterback piece. I agree that there's a clutch gene. And I think that until any of our quarterbacks, and I mean any of them, Bo Nix, Justin Herbert, or Geno. Now, the Raiders are likely, well, I guess this all depends on how Geno does for you. But given the fact that he's kind of been around the league and not stuck with one team, I think it's a reasonable assumption that Geno may or may not stick around with the Raiders long term. But if he does really well for you, I could even see you guys re-signing him. But either way, at this stage here, Geno has not really and truly proven himself as a long-term option that is capable of carrying a team. Now, is Geno a huge upgrade over your previous two quarterbacks in the AOC 12?
Absolutely.
Massive,
for sure. No argument for me there. Like 100%. Like that was a fantastic move by your organization to avoid the idiocy that would have been Shedeur Sanders in the draft. Anyone that comes into the draft to think that they're bigger than the team, or that they are bigger than the game, or that they have an ego that means that they don't need to participate in the process, is someone that you typically don't want on your team. Now, does that mean that he can overcome those hurdles and end up becoming a really good pro? Eventually, maybe, but not in the short term. And right now, the Raiders need a short-term beneficial quarterback to really bolster your team. And I do believe you got that in Geno Smith. Now, where I absolutely disagree with both of you is Geno. Now, has Geno proven himself for longer in the league? Yes. Has he done fairly well the last couple of years? Yes. However, what are you using to rank the quarterback to where they are? As an example, as you said, Jack, by your own metric, did Patrick Mahomes...
I just said that one stat just because I thought it was interesting because it was Mahomes. But overall, I'm just looking at, Geno being the fifth most accurate passer last year. And, he's got the legs. Now you got a great head coach. You got a great offensive coordinator, even though that's first year. So again, it's unproven. And I will say this, that's one of the reasons why I'm not going to put him above Herbert or, even close to Patrick Mahomes at this stage. But I think he has gone through the whole shebang of like being a high draft pick, sitting on the bench, going to multiple teams, learning a ton of different schemes. And then he proved himself, in Seattle that he could be a good quarterback with one of the worst offensive lines, that were out there. I think that Seattle gave up 50 some odd sacks. I'm almost thinking it's high 50s, and still was a productive quarterback. And it, by the way, also, Willie Wayne, salute. Matt Marinovich, salute. Good to see you brothers in here. So,
thanks,
but that's why I got him ranked number 3.
Eventually, I would like to finish.
Yeah, zip it.
Yeah. So the point I'm making here is Geno did not make the playoffs last year. Yes, he did not have the greatest team in the world or any of that kind of stuff. But my whole point is, what are we using collectively to rank the quarterbacks? Is it the clutch gene? Is it the quality of their team? Is it the quality of the offensive line? Or is it just generally overall? So if I'm personally just letting you know that I'm just using generally overall, right? Like I'm looking at a combination of future potential. I'm looking at what we saw from them last season. I'm looking at where they were able to elevate their team to last season. I'm looking at a multitude of different factors. So as an example, I would completely agree with your ranking of Patrick Mahomes in our division. Until proven otherwise, that dude, number one. Okay? Like this is like market in pen until someone can literally burn the page. You know what I mean? Like I totally understand and I agree with that. However, as we start going down from Patrick Mahomes, you then start getting into sorry, I've just never heard that, Raider Shield. I guess that's an unfortunate circumstance for you.
Yeah.
But anywho, moving on to kind of where I was going with that, which is then you get into this really interesting block of the remaining three quarterbacks within the division. Geno Smith has made it to the playoffs, albeit only once. Okay. And we spoke about that earlier. He's kind of had a bit of a slow start, if you will, and that's probably an understatement of the century for his career thus far. And then you end up with Herbert, who had a statistically excellent start to his
Matt,
career.
I'll find you. Matt, I will find you. We don't
Love it, Matt.
Nonsense. I just want to do like a 5-second thing on the Geno. You know how you're saying the overall, right? And why I have him? Geno Smith, like in his tenure in Seattle, that has been a much tougher division than our division, in my opinion. So that's why I'm also ranking him number 3. Is, you can say what you want about the Arizona Cardinals, but they have been better than the worst team in our division, in my opinion. So I just look, yeah, he only made it one time, but the NFC West has been a better division than the AFC West. Now this year, we can give him a run for the money.
So based on that, what I'm kind of getting at here is I think Geno can elevate up the list. I really do. I think he can really go up the list. Now, is Geno still an upgrade for the Raiders? Yeah. Is Geno better than any quarterback they had last year? For sure. But Bo Nix made it to the playoffs last year with a team that barely eked out a winning record and was above average at best. And I mean at best in the first year that Sean Payton was there. So I kind of look at Bo Nix as a rookie was right on pace with Jaden Daniels until the very end of the season, where the Broncos defense and the rest of some of the other injuries occurred. He really was, statistically speaking. And then Jaden Daniels pulled away at the game 3 or 4, the third to last game or fourth to last game of the season, was where the two of them kind of parted ways, if you will, where Bo Nix had a bit of a regression game. And Jaden Daniels continued on pace. So the way I look at it is potential-wise. Geno Smith has been in the league for 10 years and has made the playoffs once. Bo Nix has been in the league a single season. And yes, I will admit and agree that it is a very small sample size at this point, but he's got the exact same head coach. He's coming back to the exact same system. And he's shown that he can run that system even as a rookie at a caliber that had him in the running for Offensive Rookie of the Year up until about the 4th to 5th last game of the season last season. And with that in mind, I see, sorry, I'm just going to pull up Matt's comment here. That's very much my point, which is, if you're not even seen as a starting caliber quarterback, not to say that Geno is not a good quarterback and is ascending, because I think he is actually. but I just can't put him over Bo Nix at the third position until I see Gino outplay Bo Nix with the head coach, with the system, on the team, and if I'm going to be honest, also make the playoffs, right? And
this is what Jack and I alluded to, Richie, that we're going to come back to this. So, like, we're like, are we projecting or are we saying it right now?
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, are you saying right now Bo is better than Gino?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so.
So
because,
I would ask you this way.
I'm looking at it from the sample size perspective.
Well, I'm just looking at this. If you had Gino play the way Gino did last year, and then he went on your Broncos, well, who would have been a better quarterback? Again, if they had the time to train and everything else with the head coach, your offensive coordinator, if you can put that quarterback on your team, I look at it. If I put Bo Nix on my team, not counting salary cap or anything like that,
sure,
versus Gino, I just don't think Bo Nix would be better than Gino. I don't think he'd be better than Herbert. I don't think he'd be better than Patrick Mahomes. So I'm just kind of looking at it. If I were to put that quarterback of today and we switch them around, would you be better or worse? So that's what I'm saying. It's more of your gut feel, and that's why I got it ranked the way it is. And how many quarterbacks or players have sophomore slumps? So
see, I'm not even willing to entertain that until I've seen anything put on field. My whole thing is this, and it's super, super simple. Quarterbacks are and by the way, we've heard this from actual quarterbacks. So this isn't just the fanalist in me and the Broncos fan in me saying, Bo Nix, Bo Nix, Bo Nix. In fact, as DZ quite accurately pointed out, I didn't want Bo Nix to start last year, and I own that take. I actually, in some regards, agree with that take because I do often wonder what we would have seen from Bo Nix if he had been more slowly eased into his NFL debut. But the way I look at it is this: Geno Smith has taken a long time to even get to the point where he's at right now.
And he was drafted from West Virginia,
right. But Bo Nix in one season proved that he could run the system that he's running right now at a high enough caliber to get his team into the playoffs and at least for a portion of the game look modestly competitive. And the other thing that you said about switching quarterbacks in terms of team and who would be better and all that kind of stuff, I'm not convinced that Geno Smith has the same genetic makeup that Bo Nix has when it comes to falling behind and being able to push away the demons, as it were, and bring the team back from behind. I have seen Bo Nix do that multiple times last season, to his credit, as a rookie. You know what I mean? And so that's my point, which is who has that clutch gene, who has that ability to Iron Man it out. Mahomes, given, I agree, you're not getting any argument from me there. He's kind of the gold standard, as it were, in the NFL as it stands today. But then I've seen Bo Nix have that same ability for my Denver Broncos last season, where he was able to push back and push through and either have us win from coming from behind, or have us come back from behind and either almost win or become within a missed field goal, for example, against the Chiefs, or something along those lines, where we were actually competitive. And I haven't seen that from my Denver Broncos since Peyton Manning was the quarterback here for my team, and that was over a decade ago.
Well, then I have a question for you, Richie, because, again, I didn't watch any of the Seahawks games last year. You're saying, coming back, being clutch and so forth, and you saw, with Bo Nix. Did you watch the Seahawks play in all their games and to see what he actually has done? Because I can't say that I have, because I'm not a Seahawks fan, so they can kick cans for me. So since you said that, I just want to know, did you watch all the games and to observe that, or is it kind of more of like you're just talking for Bo Nix and Geno's been a guy who came through the ranks, coming off the bench, later on becoming a starter, someone who's worked with Pete Carroll for years and years. And that's the only reason why you want to come here. But did you watch those games to say that?
I did. I'm actually friends with some of the Seahawkers guys and whatnot. We kind of volley back and forth from time to time and whatnot. But I saw Geno. Geno looked good. Don't get me wrong. This isn't like me saying Geno Smith is an awful quarterback. In fact, I think he's quite a good quarterback, and he has, frankly, a tremendous opportunity to really just kind of quell all of these.
We're not saying number 4 is bad by any means.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying if I were to rank what I know and what I've seen, I simply just can't bring myself with what I saw last
I agree,
year.
Raider Shield family. Weird name.
Hey, guys in the chat, just for curiosity's sakes, what do you guys, put out? Like, who's number 1? Who's number 2? Who's number 3? Who's number 4? And your guys' ranking from all your opinions.
Why they do that? We should move on to the next.
I agree.
Topic.
Yep.
The next.
So
position.
just real quick, my rankings just simply invert the last two.
Yeah.
And I do want to just quickly make one comment on Herbert. The only reason why I'm not actually arguing for Bo Nix to rank above Herbert,
which I've seen some psychopaths on Twitter be doing.
Look, this is the whole point. I am pretty level-headed, in my opinion, when it comes to this sort of thing, and I am intentionally that way because I don't want nonsense comments. I want to be able to actually have a defendable position. I can't honestly do that. Herbert has made it to the playoffs twice. He has had multiple major records that he's either set or broken or met milestone-wise statistically in the NFL thus far in his career. Now, Herbert is not an old quarterback, and is it possible that Bo Nix could, catch? Sure, 100%. Like I'm right there too, because I think the team that you go to and the coach that you have matters, and we've seen that with Pat Mahomes. And frankly, I think we're kind of seeing a little bit of that with Bo Nix and stuff and Sean Payton. So
dude, if Nix stays with Payton like for years, right? I could see him ascend super high.
Absolutely.
And we've seen that with Mahomes having that foundation. We've talked about this on countless shows, the foundation they have in Kansas City. And then you have Justin as he's going into year 2 with Harbaugh. So it's like he's already had 2 previous head coaches in the NFL. Anthony Lynn, who I think is a great guy. I just don't think he's a good head coach. And Brandon Staley, who was a complete fraud in how he got his job. I have no clue.
Staley's Madden. I love it. Every time I hear that name, I just think of Madden for how many times, on 4th down, 8 times in a game. I'm like, dude, you are just playing Madden. And, Herbert too, I will say, Bo Nix has come into like a perfect storm with the roster that Denver has.
Super Bowl winning head coach, Sean Payton.
That, again, the players that they have on that team, the surrounding cast is there. So potential, I can see it. And now I see Herbert the same way because, getting your head coach and your players that you have on your squad. And that's why I think, when you start winning a ton of games, we talked about Patrick Mahomes, he doesn't seem like the Patrick Mahomes of old because he signs the huge contract, which Herbert's got a big contract. But when you're drafting so far down, it's like you're not getting quite the talent to replenish the talent that you can't pay. So, yes, potential with Nix, but I'm just kind of saying, 2025. I'm not looking ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's. I agree, Jack. I agree.
So basically, I effectively can't justify Bo Nix going above Herbert. I think it's possible. In fact, I even think it's possible, to be quite honest, he said that if this year Bo Nix makes it to the playoffs and even wins a playoff game,
I can see that.
I think that there is a legitimate conversation to be had there,
if
right?
that happens, Richie, happens, let's say the scenario that Broncos make the playoffs, Chargers don't make the playoffs, Bo wins I will probably go into hibernation. I will lose. I will have to delete every damn social media account I have because
don't do that because that might happen.
The internet will freaking blow up. Look, I do know that I think this year they're on a good even par. Broncos brought in some guys, and somebody that we haven't talked about, Richie, that me and you were texting each other about earlier. But, unless something catastrophic happens in LA, I know they have a way tougher schedule this season. 9 teams they're going against that were in the playoffs. Like, oh my God. But they brought in some dudes, so we'll see. But you guys want to do next position group?
Yeah, let's do running backs. Start
Ooh,
next
running backs. You want to start it off, Jack?
Yeah, I'll start it off. So do you want we going last to first?
Yeah, we'll just keep it going the same.
All right. Since there's no KC host here, I'm gonna dog on KC. You're coming in last, dude. Your running back room's coming in last. You had some good ones last year, and I liked it, but this is 2025. So no, I just don't see it, honestly. Compared to like the other running back rooms, again, it's what I think that's going to happen in 2025, and just the players that everybody got. Everyone drafted running backs this year, and so I think everyone's gotten better. And now I got, unless you guys start using Estimate more, yeah, you're running back in the second round. I think he's okay. He's okay, but Estimate, and I forgot his name, but your second round running back, I think that's a pretty decent combination. And then the running back that you guys had last year that started for you, it's okay too. But I can't say Denver's running game is the best. Now, this is where I'm torn.
Yeah.
I mean, as a running back room, okay, a running back room between the Chargers and the Raiders, it's like, okay, you guys got, the running back, what's Harris or like from Pittsburgh, got over 1,000 yards. You guys got the second best running back in the draft in Hampton. I'm like, ooh, now that's stout. That is stout. If I was going to say, if just the Raiders to counter that, we got the like potentially a generational running back in Genty, and we got Mozart, who's super fast. And he's done so well with Miami, but I compare the two. I'm looking at the two running backs. I think I have the highest end running back in the division, but I think your running backs, DZ, are the tweeners number 2 and number 3 to my number 4. So I'm going to say I got to go Raiders number 2, unless just Genty just blows up. But at this moment in time, I got to say the Raiders are number 2, and I got to say the Chargers are number 1 because you got a proven running back. You got Hampton, who was a guy I really wanted. If we didn't go, I wanted Mason Graham for the Raiders, so I was hoping, okay, man, we can hopefully get Hampton in round number 2, who's a pure stud too, and he's a bigger back. So you got 2 guys that are kind of the same, but man, by the time the fourth quarter hits, with 2 big bodies like that running down, wearing down the defense, I think that's going to be huge. And it's like, so I got to say KC 4, Broncos 3, Raiders 2, Chargers number 1, but it's almost like a coin flip in some ways. But it's an unknown with Genty, and it's an unknown with Hampton. But yeah. I know you're going to split carries between them, and they're always going to be fresh. So at the end of the day, at the end of the season, when people get banged up, if someone gets hurt, I look at it, okay, if Genty gets hurt, then I'm down to Mozart. I'm like, I like it, but it's not great. And then after that, the depth goes down. So that's the way I'm going to call you, Sacktown, dude. My brother, Sacktown. What's up, man?
Hey, and then Edward, can you list the other AFC teams that would get in the playoffs over us 3? I was just reading your comment, not thinking that we're good enough, but I get it for schedule-wise. Like, I get your comment, and I'm just like, what other AFC teams are getting in above us? Just curious. I'm going to do mine real quick. I definitely have from number 4, I've got the Broncos. Now, there was some spicy news. An old Charger from last season visiting, going to have dinner tonight with old Richie's ownership and coaches. Mr. J.K. Dobbins, which I am not happy about, man. I am, because I know J.K. has some juice, and he would be a great number 2 or number 3 on any team. I just don't think he's a number 1, just due to his injury concerns and his stature. I think a number 1 needs to have that right mix, 5'11" to 6 foot, something like that. That's your number 1. 200 some odd pounds, but I got Broncos number 4 because just, we know what they had last season, and we know the stats that they're coming in, like with their rushing scores. I think they only had 6 touchdowns combined or something like that. But this is where I'm like torn. I'm like, I don't know, because Jack, I don't agree with the Chiefs because Pacheco is a damn good running back, but he does have health concerns. And they did bring back old man Kareem Hunt, and they did sign, I can't remember if chat wants to help me, they did bring in a late round running back, I believe. But I actually do like the Chargers running back room. It's Najee Harris, Omarion Hampton, and then it gets to competition. Then there's Hassan Haskins, who's a Michigan guy that Harbaugh brought in to do a lot of special team stuff, who we saw get goal line opportunities last season. Then you have Kamani Vidal, who reports are coming out. He was a 5th-round pick last season, and he really didn't have a good season. He did play some snaps, but reports are coming out of camp that this guy said, "What can I do to get better?" And even the wide receiver coach gave him stuff, routes to catch and things like that. And this guy had some really good college tape. And so we'll see. And he's going to compete with Kamani. He's going to compete with Hassan Haskins and Raheem Sanders, who a lot of Charger fans are really excited about, the South Carolina guy, Raheem Rocket Sanders. So I'm excited to see these guys, especially in preseason. I want to see this running back room battle it out. But Jack, I agree with you. That's what the Chargers want to do. Thank you, whoever, Brashard Smith. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
That's what the Chargers want to do this season. They just want to they want to ground and pound. Is you, Richie? The fastest keyboard in the West.
Good. Thank you as well, Nav.
So I'm going to go with the room. If we're just going to go overall room, I'm going to go Broncos, Chiefs, Raiders, Chargers. And that's not sliding players, because I think Genty can be another generational guy to pair with Brock Bowers, which is just absolutely crazy to think about. To have 2 generational weapons on an offense is just nuts. But I'm thinking as a room as a whole, and these can all change. Like, if the Broncos do land JK, I already texted Richie about this. That's going to really bump that room up. He's a great guy. He's an excellent locker room guy, and he's got juice. People, when they think about JK, they just think about his injuries. But when he's healthy, I mean, the stats are out there. It was 9. I think he had 9 touchdowns last season. He had I think it was over 1,000 yards. And I mean, he missed the later part of the season. He went on IR for his knee or something, and he does have an injury concern. But that's why I'm like, this guy would be great as a number 2 or number 3 on any team, and a huge boost.
Well, hopefully he doesn't sign with Denver.
They got
go back to Baltimore.
That's Wally World up there. That's Walmart money up there, man. I don't see why they would pass on him, in my opinion. But Richie did say some other guys that are available as free agents. There is a Nick Chubb is out there. One of my all-time favorite running backs ever. When I used to watch Nick Chubb when he was killing it with Cleveland, I was like, get this guy out of Cleveland. Somebody get him out of Cleveland and put him on a good team.
I wanted him.
I thought I'm going to get hate for this, and I know it, but he got hurt. I thought he was on par with Saquon Barkley, on par with all the top running backs. This guy was ascending. I was like, this dude. And then when he was paired with Kareem Hunt there, I was like, oh my God, this duo.
Yeah, that was sick.
Yeah, and I love him, and I wish nothing but the best for him. Just not in Denver.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'll just jump in on this one real quick. DZ, I'm right there 100% with Chubb. In the beginning of the offseason, you know, I know he was hurt. I mean, I knew the injury, but I don't know, you know, to the extent. Maybe that's why he's still sitting out there and the money that he wants. But I was like, you know, I looked at my Raiders rushing attack last year, and it was the worst in the NFL. I mean, absolute worst. I'm like, dude, Chubb's out there? Oh, yeah, give me Chubb, dude. I mean, that guy's a beast.
Good videos. He's doing some good workout videos out there right now.
And I totally agree with you. Up until last season, you know, with Barkley just going nuts, getting 2,000 yards, I had him on the same par too. So, I mean, I completely, utterly wanted him on the roster. But again, I don't know. I still would like to have him on the roster and get rid of Zeus, you know, to have that power back.
I'd do that every day of the week. I would do that every day of the week. Like, yeah. If you guys had a, you know, Mostert, Chubb, and then dude, oh yeah, god damn, that'd be pretty cool. But like everybody's team carries, I think last season the Chargers carried 4 or 5 running backs on the 53. You guys do similar? You guys remember like 3? But you wrote, Richie, the Broncos brought in another guy though throughout the season.
No.
Yeah, you guys had Estime. It was Estime. I swear you had 4 guys out there.
No. So for 95% of the season, or even 98% of the season,
it was only 3.
We had 3
on the 53.
We had Jaleel McLaughlin. McLaughlin is the small kind of scat back kind of dude.
Yeah.
So I kind of see Jaleel as a bit of a bigger, more competent version of Philip Lindsay, for example. So Philip Lindsay was a very quick back and he did really well. But the problem is that eventually teams started to key in when he was on the field because he can only do one thing. Right? And so once you know that you don't need to worry about the other thing, and that's pass pro, for example, like you know he's not going to be able to pass pro, it basically puts you at a disadvantage as a team, knowing that the guy can't block a pass pro for you.
What you said was key when I was talking about Kimani Vidal, why he didn't play as much. If you can't pass block, man, unless you're like a stud, they're not going to use you.
No, and that's exactly it. So Philip Lindsay basically became expendable, not because he's not a good running back. The guy's really good. He set rookie records. He set rookie records. He set UDFA records. He's a UDFA and went back-to-back 1,000-yard rushing seasons, right? The guy is not he's no slouch. Just you can't overcome the fact that you're like 5'7" or 8, and your frame can only support at most maybe 200 pounds.
I think that's why the Chargers were so afraid to extend Eckler, to bring him back, and why he asked for a trade. They couldn't get over his size, even though he went on to have a good year in Washington. But I think teams get scared, dude. I honestly do. I think there's
So either
and also with the money too. I mean, the Chargers historically don't want to pay their running backs as well. So
wrong.
And I think Eckler wanted too much money.
Chargers often do pay their running backs. But
who was the running back that went to your Broncos before Melvin Gordon.
And Melvin admitted that he effed up. He said he screwed up and should have never held out like he did. Yeah. But anyways, we'll move on.
Either way, so my Denver Broncos running back room last year, just to kind of quickly put a pin in that and quickly move on, and I'll give you my take on the running back rooms of the different teams, is you had Jaleel McLaughlin, you had Audric Estime, and then you had Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams was one of the worst running backs in the entire NFL last year.
And he was supposed to be a stud.
He never fully recovered from his injury. Love the dude. Thought he had an incredible first two and a half seasons with my Denver Broncos, and was just honestly and truly never the same after that injury. I feel for the guy, I really do. But at the end of the day, running back is a high collision sport. And in order to maximize the value for your team, you need to have a running back that can sustain contact. And he was just never the same after. So we move on. And by all accounts, I'm hearing rumblings from Broncos country that Estime may have actually been hurt but not admitted it.
They do that. I'm finding out stuff too, man.
And
right,
I'm just hearing, little birdie things. You know what I mean? And so, my comments earlier, last show and the show before, that even in the draft, I was like, dude, if I cleared out the entire running back room for my Denver Broncos, including Estime, like I'd be totally cool with that.
Yep.
I wish you would have. I'd love to have Estime on my Raiders. I'll tell you that. You know how much I love that kid.
But if he had an injury that he was keeping to himself and that he was nursing, one, it's somewhat concerning that he didn't get it properly addressed. But if he can come back and not end up getting injured again and kind of come back to his early season form, then he can be that real solid player at the running back position. It just depends on what version of him we get, right? Like there was basically Estime A and Estime B. Which one is it? Is my question. Like is it the early part of the season or is it the latter part of the season? If it's the latter part of the season, I want him to kick rocks and go to another team and bring in someone new. If Estime was hurt in the latter part of the season, didn't admit to anything, and was actually Estime A, and he can sustain himself and do better in his sophomore season and the whole deal, then I'll take that dude every day of the week. He was excellent, right? And so it just kind of depends on who you're dealing with. Now, DZ,
I got to piggyback off of that, Richie. If he's playing hurt,
hold on.
You're killing me.
You were thinking of Tyler Bidet. Now, Tyler Bidet is the dude that we brought in at the very end of the season last year. He took over the spot from Audric Estime, and we barely used him. However, Tyler Bidet is a bit of a dark horse for the Denver Broncos, a guy that people don't often talk about or think about. At the end of the 2023 season and in the preseason for 2024-2025, which was last season, Tyler Bidet was lighting it on fire for my Denver Broncos. He was a lock, actually, at that point to make the 53-man roster. He was incredible. He is another one of those guys that is an Audric Estime type. He is built well, stature properly, can pass pro, has some, seniority in the league, that sort of thing. And he's a guy that I think that my team really likes and is a bit of an unsung hero in terms of that a guy like Sean Payton likes. So we have a much deeper running back room than I have really given us credit for. I just personally have a certain mold for a running back that I personally prefer.
Yeah.
And
giant.
I just want I want the bulldozer. I want
King Henry is on your team. We would have to change. Richie would have to change his shorts.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm gonna jump in. Is it really Estime that's keeping his secret, or is it like the Broncos organization that's keeping his secret? Because you don't want to give up a player that's hurt, and then other players on the other squad are going to target that spot on your body to hurt you.
You're right, Jack. But kind of what Richie's saying, that he's hearing rumblings. The Chargers have put out these OTAs, and there's been 3 players now that have come out because there's an allotted time, and I'm no expert.
And they don't talk about it.
Yeah, you're not allowed to talk about it. There's some it's a HIPAA or whatever violation. They're not allowed to talk about it. But 3 players have come out saying last season they got hurt. One of our guys, our linebacker, Deion Henley, tore something week 4 and played through it the whole season. And they just had to it's just rehab and it's just like all this stuff. But we've had it was Will Dissly, our tight end. But we've had a bunch of guys come out in these OTAs doing pressers that have said they talked about their injuries because they're allowed to be from some certain time that's passed.
And you got to give credit to, the players that, are still going out there and still trying to do it. So you got to see they're putting their hard hats on, and they got the mentality. I want to go out there. I want to perform for my team and show that I can still do it and I can work through injuries. So that's better than the player that says, man, put me on IR for 4 weeks, coach.
And not all
at least they got that mentality.
Right, Jack? Not all players do that. There's players who say, screw it, man. Look,
right.
If anybody's had turf toe, I say that because it's just one small appendage, but I mean, your whole, pivoting, goes off that. But there can be a player who's like, I got turf toe, I'm sitting out, put me on IR. I'm still getting paid no matter what, right? So this is where it's like you borderline, you bring in the players who want to play every week, who are banged up, but they still find a way to suit up on Sunday and play that full 60 minutes. And that's what you're looking for, and I know that's big. That's the Raider way, right? That's the Bronco way, that's what you want. And some of these guys are like a torn labrum, like one of our players had a torn labrum like the most of the season. I'm like, Jesus, like my dog kicks me in the bed. I wake up and I don't function right the next day. Like these guys are they're studs, man.
Bo Nix played his last game against the Bills, and then as soon as he lost, it was announced that he had to go for major surgery on his shoulder because of So Jack, the other thing that you're kind of missing in here is escalators on contracts and other elements. So here's an example. Your Las Vegas Raiders, my Denver Broncos, and DZ's Los Angeles Chargers. The Chiefs decide not to show up, so we'll just miss them from the comments here. But either way, the Hunts from the Chiefs have the same liability issues. If their players come forward to their organization and state that they have an injury or an issue, the team is liable and must, based on potentially at the risk of getting sued.
Yeah, they got to put them doubtful, questionable.
No, but they have to do the right thing, or at least something to kind of announce that there's an injury to the player or whatever the case may be. Now, if a player holds back from the team, then they can go and make their workout bonuses. They can go and make up and get the dollars that exist for perhaps playing in a playoff game, even if they're hurt, right? Now, I'm not saying that I'm not trying to knock on your team. This isn't what the point of the comment is, but I know the Raiders haven't made the playoffs in the last couple of years, but I'm sure that the next time you do, at the end of a playoff, either loss or win, something will come out from some random player that you had no idea about that played through some injury that every normal fan is going to look at and be like, dude, you're going to get yourself killed, or you're going to maybe end your career. These players at the end of the day are looking at themselves as the product. And they are saying, I have a finite period of time by which I can capitalize on the fact that I am in the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. And in order to capitalize to retire at age 30 or 35 or whatever it is, which is, basically 30 years before the rest of us, they are needing to basically ignore and suppress pain. It's just a fact. It's like there's just no way around it. You know what I mean? And, I know dudes that played in the NHL living in Canada because that's just kind of like the way that Canada works. Hockey's kind of the thing. And I can tell you for sure that people that I know in the NHL that played in both the Olympic teams and in the NHL played through injuries that 100%, if their teams knew about, would have benched them done. Because liability exists and lawyers are a thing and nobody wants to go through that noise. They just don't. Yeah. And so players take a calculated risk when they believe that they can overcome the thing and simply say, don't care. It's just a fact. I'm sorry. It's
that
just
is a fact. I look at Max Crosby, high ankle sprain. Guy's playing on one leg. Doesn't give a rat's ass.
Yeah.
Still going out there.
And hold on, Jack, you're going to appreciate this reference. Look at what T.O. did.
Terrell Owens?
Yeah, the infamous game where he literally ripped off the cast, signed a waiver, and said, "I'm playing no matter what. I don't give a crap." Right? Like that is. Let's put it this way. There's no way that a team would ever be allowed to do that in today's day and age. But credit where credit's due, T.O. literally showed that he is one of the toughest players that may have ever played the game. Because
he's up there. I mean, this is a warrior sport. These are modern day warriors. Elite athletes. Look,
alpha males for sure.
Yeah, even on my team. Look, I know you guys give. Other fans give Justin Herbert shit, but he is a tough SOB. I've seen the litany of injuries he's gone through just in these 5 seasons he's played, and he plays the games. Like getting his ribs crushed, breaking his fingers, having that whole thing. And then foot injury coming into the last season, having a Liz Frank or whatever the hell that is. I guess it's like stepping on nails. You can't even walk or whatever. And they're going through different shoe designs and figuring out.
It feels like you have a nail in the bottom of your foot,
dude. And they were shooting him up, like it reminded me of the movies, Friday Night Lights or whatever. They were shooting him up every, for practices, for the games, just to keep that pain down. And he just doesn't. He's like that. And there's another guy, our rookie Ladd McConkey last season. I'm not going to go into this long, but this offseason he was studying Julian Edelman and Lockett about how to fall better so he can prevent injuries because he's not a big guy. And so he's studying their film. Look, this is how you need to catch up. This is what you need to do. Like Lockett, he would see 3 guys and get down, and Julian Edelman, if you guys remember watching him play, he'd catch the ball and he would always go for those extra dirty couple yards. And, Ladd has been studying their film and because he wants to, keep his career going longer. Cause he's not a big wide receiver. I believe he's 5'10", 5'11", or whatever it is. So it's just, you got to find a way. And some of these guys are competitors. No matter what, they're shooting up. They're getting out there. Shoot me up, man. We could go through hundreds of hours of players throughout, since the NFL started, of how tough these SOBs are. And we've all played it in some form or another growing up. And, this game isn't for everybody. This is why mothers have a problem with their sons playing this game, because it is a brutal sport. It is a simulated car crash almost every play. So
right.
I'm not gonna lie, I guess my parents are just different, but they were totally cool with me playing rugby or football, and I guess it also came from my dad's side of the family, which is just, you're still breathing, so shut up and go.
Well, that's kind of why I said it. For Estimate, I'm like, just not the money enhancers, but it's just the players that got that mentality. Like, again, you telling your story, which don't tell it again, but it's like, with your broken, foot or ankle and still trying to go out there and play. So there are those players that have that mentality, and they're just going to keep it, either they're going to keep it quiet or they're going to, they'll say it and they don't care. It's like, okay, we'll put you at doubtful, 75% chance you're not going to play, but we know you're going to play. Yeah. I can say that's 100% of Max Crosby right there. Doesn't matter.
But it's the thing is that the team will never put themselves to a risk factor where there was ever a moment that they felt that the player was going to end their career or void their contract and not be able to serve it out or anything along those lines, right? And so this is really what the point is, right? Which is with some of these players, which is, well, and in addition to that, a player like Max Crosby and others as well. Max Crosby is a unique a unique animal as well. He's kind of like the Von Miller of your
Gord?
team. So he's going to basically
What's up,
tell
Gord?
them. He's going to tell your team and their doctors what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, because he is the face of that franchise. At
Max
the
is
moment,
a stud,
sure.
man.
And he is well deserving of that kind of aura based on his production on the field. But he's going to dictate what he can and cannot do, because no one's going to know what Max can and cannot do better than Max can. And that's fine. That's fair enough. Von Miller was in a similar position. Peyton Manning was in a similar position. Like, you just have certain dudes that come through your team every so often, not even regularly, ever so often, that have the clout and ability to kind of dictate something versus the other. Real quick, before we move on, it seems like DZ had a slightly different positional ranking. I just want to quickly put a pin in the running back group. Jack, I do generally agree with your positional rankings more than DZ. I think that Estime has shown what he can do in the league a little bit more than, say, Amari and Hampton. However,
that's true.
However, I'm not going to lie. I do think that when things shake out, RJ Harvey and Amari and Hampton and Genty are going to be the defining players within our division, more so than, say, the Chiefs, for example.
Sure.
And so I think that'll be very interesting to kind of see where things end up.
By the way, I'm a huge fan of Wes Welker. I saw your comment. I'm like, I love Wes Welker.
No. Wes Welker was great, but the problem that he had is that he didn't protect his head at all.
Yeah.
And he got himself concussed like just nobody's business. Like, the guy just got himself rocked. And so if Ladd McConkey is looking at a player, Wes Welker is a great player to look at, but also to look at what not to do as well as what to do. But I agree, like, Edelman, by and large, seemed to angle his body in a certain way to kind of avoid the injury and do the thing. And so I kind of agree with that as a guy to look at.
And Lockett, what his whole deal was, I'm going to live to play, like, hey, I might not get these extra 3 yards. I'm going to get down so I can play the next play.
Correct.
Like, that was his whole mantra, his whole mentality, because, there was times where they would double cover, Lockett up in Seattle back in the day, or triple coverage. They'd spy him or whatever. He's like, fine, I'll catch a ball. I'm dropping. I'm not even going to let you touch me. But anyways.
That's what I'm saying. Is that, like, I'm not saying Wes Welker wasn't a great player, because he was.
Oh, he was. He was amazing.
He was amazing.
Yeah. He was good.
He was a UDFA as well, right?
And he was a quarterback and transitioned to wide receiver.
So anyways, just generally speaking, the point being is that Wes Welker, despite being a great player, did not do what I would say Ladd is trying to do, which is avoid the head injuries and other injuries.
Right.
That's just kind of my general comment there.
What's the next position, guys?
Next one's wide receivers, and since I did the first two, going first, Richie's gone last. I want Richie to start off with this with the wide receivers, and then you DZ, and then I'll go.
Okay, this is wide receiver.
This is a tough one. This is a tough one.
This is tough.
That's why I want to go last.
Damn.
Pure wide receiver.
Pure wide, no tight ends.
Yeah, I'd have to put Raiders fourth. I'd have to go Chiefs third. And again, I'm talking pure wide receivers here.
Pure wide receivers.
Yeah, we're going room. Pure, yep.
And then kind of where I get into an interesting one here is I just think the Broncos wide receiver room has got a tremendous amount of depth. Like, I'm really kind of in an interesting spot there. I have to probably put the Broncos first, just because I think the depth that's in the room and the fact that various guys actually did really well within the system that they're playing in, and that matters.
I can see that. Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, for example, Tyreek Hill was clearly landed in the greatest spot for him in KC and has gone on to have a storied career even outside of KC after developing in Kansas City. And so I think where you land, as we say with quarterbacks, also matters for wide receivers and some other guys as well. And I think that, Cortland Sutton, Troy Franklin, Devon Vele, we got a couple, Mims having kind of shown to be a really incredible gadget.
Which I think Mims is going to have a bigger year this year.
Yeah. But again, they finally figured out a good niche role for Mims to play on the team, and he did really well. And so now that you kind of know what you want to do with him, you can actually kind of start expanding that role a little bit now that you kind of know what you want from him, right? And so, and then we brought in Pat Bryant,
like Pat
which I think is another great kind of possession.
Good pickup.
Doesn't drop much, good body control kind of guy. And then we got a whole boatload of guys in the depth side of things as UDFAs that have a combination of size and speed, which we haven't even seen preseason yet. Some of those guys can kind of really elevate that room as well. So I really do think that the Broncos wide receiver room has just got a lot of depth to it. And I have a hard time ranking them. I just think they would be kind of in that top echelon in terms of pure wide receivers. Again, I'm only looking at the room. I'm not looking at the quarterbacks throwing them the ball or any other kind of stuff. I'm just looking at the wide receivers themselves. And then so the Chargers, I think, would probably put them at number 2. I think Ladd McConkey really showed out. I think he brought back Mike Williams, who's kind of a proven commodity if he can actually not get hurt by stiff wind. But again, in the right conditions, like he had last season, for example, he proved that he can be a pretty gifted wide receiver and stuff. So I think that the Chargers are probably ranked number 2 in my mind. And again, only based on and solely based on wide receivers exclusively. I am not factoring in tight ends.
Yep, I agree. All right, my turn. Right?
Yep.
All right. So number 4, I'm going to go with the Las Vegas Raiders. Jack, I'm not picking on your team, but caveat, some really good guys right there. So they're starters, right? Projected starters is Jacoby Myers, Jack Besh, and Trey Tucker probably would be, or Thornton. Maybe Thornton can get in there, work in there. But
I think Thornton's going to take over that role.
Right, so if they run 2 wide receiver or 3 wide receiver steps, that's really good guys to have. They're solid dudes. But we're going through the overall room. Usually teams carry anywhere from 5 to 7 wide receivers because they play a lot of special teams, right? Things like that. So I'm going to go Raiders 4, Chargers 3. I'm going Chargers 3. It's Ladd, Mike Williams. And look, I'll get hate up from my fans because a lot of the guys that they brought in, they're rookies, right? So I don't know how to judge them yet. And something I saw on a presser was the wide receiver coach, Sanjay Law, who is the wide receiver coach for the Los Angeles Chargers, who came from Seattle, also spent time in Dallas. He talked about the rookies. He said they're extremely smart. They're picking up the playbook. He gave all these guys, all the UDFAs, all these rookies, he gave them routes and plays in the offseason. And the first day, he said, run these routes. And he said every one of them ran the routes. And he was really blown away. But what he said is they're not in shape right now. They did a banquet tour. These rookies go and do all this stuff. And he's like, they're not up to standard right now. They're not up to par with us. So we got to get them in shape. And that's specifically Trey Harris, our second-round pick, and KLS, Keandre Lambert-Smith, another speedster. Because some idiot aggregate account put on X, Trey Harris looks slow. He didn't mention that Trey Harris, number 1, isn't signed yet. So he is still just out there for fun. Number 2, they were just going through walkthroughs. It was just QBs throwing to receivers. Nothing crazy. And he's also came off a sports hernia, so we don't know if he's 100% healed, ready to rock. I mean, we'll find out. I think next week starts mandatory OTAs. Hopefully, these second rounders can get signed because I believe the Chargers have not signed Trey Harris yet. Anyways, Quentin Johnson, this guy like is a mental case in my opinion. I think he's got all the talent in the world. He just doesn't have it up here. I think there's that. So and there's other Jalen Reagor they brought in. Darius Davis, this guy has gone he's gone under the radar, not missing, because everybody's like, oh, Quentin Johnson. People don't remember that they also drafted his teammate, Darius Davis, who's been our special teams ace, and who is, I think, is going to probably surprise a lot of people, mostly Chargers fans, of how much he's used because his route tree is growing. But just remember, he's a tiny guy, very fast. But so
we'll talk about your draft pick too.
Yeah. Who are you talking about, Trey? Or the second rounder, Trey Harris?
Yeah, Harris.
Yeah, I think this guy is gonna eventually be the number 2 to Ladd's number 1. I think Ladd has got the potential to be a blue chip player that becomes a household name, in my opinion. I think he's got the stuff. I think he's got that it factor. But look, year 1, we'll see what he does. I'm glad they brought back Mike Williams, but as Richie alluded to, injuries, right? So that's a huge thing. So I've got the Chargers 3. And then this is where this gets weird. I've got I'm looking at the rooms. I briefly looked at the Broncos. I briefly looked at the Chiefs. I got a tie. I have a tie between the Chiefs and the Broncos. I like the Chiefs wide receiver room. And, there's a guy they brought in.
Well, remember this, Richie said, take the quarterback out of it. He said, take the quarterback out of it.
I'm doing 100%. I'm doing 100%. I like, and, they're bringing Rashee Rice. Say what you want about him, because I sure as hell am not rooting for this kid, because I believe if you F up as bad as you do outside of football, you need to be punished. This league doesn't punish players anymore. They just smack them on the wrist and they say, oh, let's hope everybody forgets about it, because we have such short attention spans this day and age. But I look at their room, man. I mean, look, you say Juju Smith-Schuster, but whatever. Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown. They brought in another guy, Jalen Royals. I was really high on this guy. He only had
Utah.
Only 1 year at Utah where he blew up. But, I mean, if they can make him work, which let's just say, like, the Chiefs rarely make guys not work. Like, they're going to have a really, really good wide receiver room. And I said this, I think, weeks ago, where I expected Mahomes to air the ball out more this season. And their wide receiver room is looking like that's going to be a thing. They're going to go more downfield threat. And with Bo, I think Sky, Nicole Hardman, yep, they're all still there.
No, but they never really worked out, though.
Yeah. Okay, sure, but they're on their team and they still contribute one way.
Yeah,
just like that big white boy they used to have. I don't know if he's still there, Justin or whoever. He would just show up and just catch balls. Like, you're like, where'd this guy come from? And then he's catching touchdowns. But I think it's a tie, because I really liked the Broncos. I'm looking at the guys. I'm seeing 5 guys on each team. Who's going to be there? I think it's a 1A, 1B, Broncos, Chiefs. So I can't put one or the other, because I like both rooms. I really do. And look, who's to say that Jack, that Thornton guy you guys picked up, right? Like, who's to say he doesn't just set the league on fire with that size and speed, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? And so there's some, but right now, as I'm seeing it, I got Raiders, Chargers, and then I've got a tie for first between the Broncos and Chiefs.
Man, guys, I'm seeing this is why I wanted to put myself last, because I see coin flips all across the board. I can see any of these teams taking the advantage in the league. I mean, it really just depends on the season. So I had a hard time. I got my notes. I have arrows like for every single team hopping every other team. I had the hardest time with this out of all the positions that are out there. So
this is a tough position, Jack.
Tomorrow I can change my mind. I mean, honestly, I can change my mind, but I disagree. I disagree with both you guys, you know, in a certain way. So I'm going to start again. Sorry, Richie. I'm not trying to, you know, dump on your offenses. I've been doing this the whole night. I look at, you know, your wide receivers, and I look at, you know, my number one, who was the number two, in reality, number two, and Jacoby Myers. I mean, the guy dropped. He got over like over 1,000 yards. I think it was around 1,100. Did not drop one ball the whole season, and had shit quarterback play. I mean, the worst quarterback play you can have in the entire NFL, and he gets 1,100 yards. And then it's like, but this is the problem with my team is that I'm going on potential with this one because, you know, DZ, you just mentioned Thornton. The guy's like 6'5", runs a 4.3 40, huge. I mean, he's just huge and he's fast. And then you get Jack Besh, who's exactly Jacoby Myers, you know, out there.
Jack Besh, big fan of him.
And he's the same as, you know, Jacoby Myers. He only dropped one ball the entire last year in college. And, you know, they're looking at him kind of more as a slot. And that makes me leave, you know, Trey Tucker to kind of kick cans, you know, on the squad. So, man, it's so tough. I got to say, potential, I'm going to put my team as number two, but not seeing it, I got to put my team as number three. I like, you know, what DZ, what you guys brought in, and I liked Ladd a lot. But when you guys, even with taking out the quarterbacks, I had Kansas City. I was like, initially, I'm like, going, man, I got him. If you're not going to put in Patrick Mahomes, they're going down. But after what you guys talked about, listening to those players' names, I got Kansas City going number one, you know, still. But there's only one of them that I see is like really explosive, you know, and worthy. And there's not a lot of explosive wide receivers. And I think I got two of them kind of more than, you know, what you guys probably have, maybe like one guy on each team. Yeah. So I'm a flip-flopper on this one. Honestly, this is the toughest one of all.
This is the position group, Jack, that I can see just do a roller coaster throughout the season because, like, we don't know about some of the guys we talked about. Like, I don't know. I see college film with Trey Harris and KLS and Jack Besh and things like that and Thornton and looked up his highlights and we just don't know what they're going to be like in the NFL. So, like, I had to just be somewhat level-headed, and I was like, I'm going to bring myself down as a room as a whole. I'm
trying because I look at, you know, the outside wide receiver. I think, you know, right now the Raiders have the best outside wide receiver, number one, even though he's really a number two. And Worthy, though, I'm seeing him as like the number two best outside wide receiver. I think Ladd is the number one slot receiver.
Oh, don't call him a slot. Don't call him a slot. No, I like it. He hates. He's like everybody. The whole charge is like he's not a slot. He's like they think I'm a slot, but I'm not a slot. So.
Did he play in a slot last season, or is he all outside?
He played He played X, Y, and Z.
So they just moved him all
that's fine. Yeah, it's fine that you say that. They just brought in some guys that play more of a prototypical X this season, being Mike Williams and Trey.
And, you know, this actually, guys, will be super fun when the season is over to have the same conversation that like what we chose and, like, you know, when the season's over, how did they end up doing? Because I'm sure all our heads are spinning. I'm sure all the fans that are out here, their heads are spinning. Like, really, if you know the teams, it's like which group is actually going to perform more. And I'll change my mind tomorrow, and I will put every team in this division at number one, and I'll put every team in this division at number 4.
Yep.
Because it is just such a coin flip. And I had got so many two unproven wide receivers, and we talked about Julian Edelman. That's Tommy Millott.
Ooh.
You know,
you think so?
And that's who they're calling him. That's the comp, in the NFL is Tommy Millott. And he's a 4.39 guy, super athletic, and he's a third wide receiver that was drafted by the team. I don't see him really getting any play because, again, Trey Tucker is going to lose a lot of touches this year. And we talked about Trey Tucker a lot last year, and he was like their deep threat, at 4.3, 6, 7. Yeah, he's probably not going to see the field that much anymore. So Tommy Millott, even being a tad bit slower, but not by a lot, playing the same position in the slot. Yeah, I don't think he's going to get a lot of run, maybe on special teams, but all the NFL comps is been Julian Edelman.
I think everybody wants to be a Julian, right?
Look, everyone wants their guy to be the next Julian Edelman or Wes Welker or insert other top tier kind of middle of the field cleanup guy here. However, let's be real. There is a reason why the Brock Bowers, I would even argue Evan Ingram, even though he doesn't necessarily get the same credit, but he certainly had production in that.
Forgot you guys got him. Damn it.
Right. And so even when you look at guys like that and other players that are in that vein, right? I'm not even just saying just those two, but I'm just using the two within the division that we're kind of familiar with and know, right?
Sure.
So, and then you got Travis Kelce, which is kind of the OG in that group there in terms of kind of saying hold my
Definitely
beer. Hold my beer and let me show you how it's done sort of thing, right? Which is or I'll let Taylor hold my beer and then you can watch me on the field. But, either way, 6 half dozen the other. The point being here is that you're dealing with an evolving NFL. And in today's NFL, the smaller, shifty, fast kind of slot guy is actually on the way out. And the reason why that position is on the way out is because the corners in the middle of the field now are bigger and faster than they have ever been ever. Ever. And so the advantage that these short, shifty, fast guys had is no longer the actual advantage that they used to have any longer. Now the advantage is, am I bigger, better, faster, and stronger, as in a total package, than your slot corner or the guy that's covering the middle of the field? And that means linebacker or nickel or dime corner in the middle of the field. And these guys are getting so quick and so fast now. And by the way, linebackers included, that you need a tight end.
They're essentially hybrid safeties now.
They really are. But my point is that guys like Travis Kelce, guys like Brock Bowers, guys in that mold that are just, freaks in the athlete category, there's a reason why they're doing so well. There's a reason why they are killing it in the league today. And that's because a dude that's 6'5" or 6'6" or 6'7", that is 250 pounds or somewhere in that range, should not be able to run like a 4.4. They just shouldn't.
Exactly.
No, they just shouldn't.
What are we feeding these people?
Yeah, the answer should be no. You know what I mean?
Why didn't I get this back in the 80s and 90s?
Right. So this is the point, right? Is that you're dealing with a different type of guy. You're dealing with a different type of player. And as a result, we've talked about this on the show before, DZ, sometimes that you hear in the audience and sometimes that you hear being as a co-host, we've spoken about how the league evolves. So the offense kind of moves their piece on the chessboard, and then the defense moves their piece subsequently on the chessboard as well. Coach Defense and I used to actually go back and forth quite a bit about this on the show here when he was repping the Chargers, where, this is kind of how the game is played. And so where we're at right now, as we stand here today, going into the 2025 season, the play du jour is fast, big, rotational defensive linemen that kill your offensive line because they have kind of freak athleticism. And the counter to that, which unfortunately the Eagles have both, which is just a pain in the rear, is the behemoth offensive lineman that can move around quite literally like dancing bears.
I mean, if you can put in fresh dudes every series, right? somewhat fresh. You can rotate. This is why I said this weeks ago about my D-line, but I guess we'll do that next week. But it's just like this rotation. You know, remember, there's only 53. I'm waiting for Goodell to, like, extend the roster due to wanting to add more games, but that's another topic or for another day. But this is why I think offensive linemen deserve all the pay in the world, in my opinion. Once you get good ones,
we'll talk about them in a little bit for sure.
Yes, back the Brinks truck up to their house because they deserve it. You know, if they can keep your QB upright, but that rotation that Richie is talking about, so important. And if you can do that on, you know, usually teams have an elite, you know, setup and then they got their tiers, right? But if you can keep those tiers super close as 1s and 2s and 3s, and you can just boom every series or, you know, third down, not every team can do this. And that like they do try, but it doesn't work. And it's sometimes when those O-linemen go, oh, okay, so-and-so's in, screw it, you know, and they plow right through it. But that's something I alluded to a couple weeks ago. Remember, my hot take was I thought the Chargers D-line, which Jack was totally caught off guard about, where I thought the Chargers D-line could be a strength. But, you know, that's next week's topic, I guess.
Yeah, it is. So
yeah, let's do offense only this week.
I'm just going to quickly finish this off, Jack, and then we'll move on to the tight end position, which I'd be shocked if we're not in violent agreement on.
Dude, we're on tight ends, right?
So I'm just going to quickly polish off what Jack was saying about the wide receivers.
Oh.
The only reason why I had the Broncos wide receivers so high in my rankings is because we've seen Marvin Mims ascend, and he is a 2023 draft pick. So he's 2 years now in the league, going into his third year. We now have Devon Bailey coming into his second year in the league after doing very well in his rookie season. He was really good, right?
Forgot about Bailey.
Like, he was really good. And then we have Cortland Sutton, who's kind of a staple in the league, who's done really well. I kind of see him as an elite number 2, but, you know, at the end of the day, he's still been incredibly productive for my Denver Broncos. So it's really hard to kind of ignore him outright. And then you have Troy Franklin, who was ascending as the year went on. He really struggled at the beginning of the year, but then really turned the Jets on and really showed out near the end. And let's also not forget, Troy Franklin was one of Bo Nix's favorite targets in college. So they have a shorthand that most other quarterbacks and wide receivers don't get. And so, yeah, they're super close, right? And so, again, the point is, it's not just the wide receiver room, and I don't want to factor in who's necessarily throwing them the ball, but I also think that you need to look at what they've shown versus what you hope they will show. And now, this is where it comes into where you said, Jack, which is this guy's projected to be this, he's looking like this, and they're looking like this. At the end of the season, we could have the Raiders ranked number 1 because every one of your rookies may have showed out and lit the league on fire. And my answer to that is, so be it. Like, no problem. I will happily admit, you know, where
same here.
where
it's like, you know,
changed,
again,
right?
Versus, you know, what's already out there versus unknown.
Right. But my point is, we're coming into the season, and there's only a handful of guys that we can really look at in the draft and say, I'd be shocked if they don't look really good. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to kind of look at what you've actually done. And then the rest has to be, I hope you do X or I hope you do Y. Right? Because, like, even quarterbacks have like a 60% failure rate.
I think it's higher than that.
Or even higher than that, right?
Yeah.
So this is the whole point, right? So anyways, on to the tight end group, and I'm going to just blast through my rankings because I think it's going to be pretty crisp and easy to kind of.
Yeah, this will be easy.
I have Chargers ranked number 4, Broncos ranked number 3. I have the Raiders ranked number 1, and I have the Chiefs ranked number 2.
Did you do some weird ranking system?
I did. I went super fast, and I included who was here first, and then put the Chiefs in at the end.
Okay. Jack, you want to go?
Oh, this is easy. I actually agree 100%. I'm right there with Richie. I mean, going number 4. I'm going Chargers.
No.
I don't see you having anything that any of the other teams have. Honestly, DZ, it's a
Rock
given.
and roll.
And with Denver, bringing that tight end in, he's ranked a top 10 tight end. So I mean, he's more of a one play, pony, but he's a receiving threat, which he's a better receiving threat than what the Chargers have. He may not be the best blocking tight end, but he is definitely a receiving threat in Ingram. I like him. And then coming off that, I'm never going to count out Kelsey. I mean, he's a GOAT. He's a Hall of Famer. He's got a gold jacket already.
He shows up in the playoffs. I'll give him that.
Well, he still had almost 1,000 yards or around 1,000 yards last season. Still as a tight end.
I'm getting really tired of seeing his floppy-haired ass on Sundays. This guy needs to get the hell out of the league. I'm so sick of this Taylor Swift bullshit.
Well, here's the thing. It's like once he comes out of the league, then we talked about this, earlier, or with Alex, is that once he goes, that frees up $17 million for them to spend.
They got some other good guys too on the roster. That Noah Gray, we talked about him.
And also, who is it? Is it Troutman? Troutman, the other tight end that's on the team. I like him. I do like him. He's more of he's not it's super explosive on catching balls, but he can run blocks, so he can do both. So you can put him in at any single time, and the defense is not going to know what the hell you're doing with him. I expect him?
Sorry, Jack. Go ahead.
Well, it's I don't expect him to get an 80-yard pass catch or anything like that, but he confuses the defense because he can do both things well. So, and then you getting Ingram on there. It's okay,
and
now
the other guy that you're missing, Jack, real quick on there is Nate Atkins is basically turning into Adam Troutman as well. So Nate Atkins and Adam Troutman are kind of those interchangeable widgets who can both pass pro and pass catch. So you could have either or of those dudes in and have no idea of what's coming.
What's up, Raider Way? Salute, buddy.
What's up, Wade? Wade's my brother, dude.
Hey,
what's up, brother?
Think the Chiefs brought in, because I think it was this year, that guy, he's got a really neat last name, Bringastol. Jake Bringastol, 6'6", 240. That's a tall dude with some meat on him, so. But then also, when did the Chiefs get Robert Tonyan? That's another blocking tight end. There's some dudes in this room. I obviously know about Watson and Wiley, but I don't know if that may be practice squad guys. But Robert Tonyan and that Jake Bringastol guy are some guys that kind of finished their room out in Kansas City.
I agree. The challenge that the Chiefs always have when they bring in some of their guys is they are often bringing in guys that they hope work in their system. And a lot of the times, first off, their quarterback can kind of smooth over the rough edges quite well just because he's quite gifted in that regard. So, credit where credit's due.
The thing is, he knows how to play the game.
Right.
He knows how to play the modern NFL game to a T.
Mm-hmm.
That is Mahomes.
Agreed. And so the thing is that the Chiefs do often bring in wide receivers that don't work and fit their scheme. And they do bring in tight ends that also don't work and fit their scheme. And but they've had the benefit, and I say this to your point earlier, of Kelsey just kind of saying, fine, I'll do all the things. Eventually, Kelsey won't be able to come in and say, fine, I'll do all the things. And then all of a sudden, they're going to end up with a Travis Kelce-sized gaping hole on their offense, which is going to really hinder them, in my opinion, because he's a former quarterback and a tight end who is a gold jacket, in hand, just set just carve out the area in Canton for him, as far as I'm concerned, unfortunately. And I hate to say it aloud, but it's true.
It is true, and I hate to say it as well.
And So I think that's fine and fair, but the point is that Mahomes has always had a safety blanket, and they kept the tight end and they let Tyreek Hill go. So they went with the higher character player who is a generational talent, as opposed to the lower character guy who is also a generational talent. And frankly, I also think Tyreek Hill really has a spot for him that ought to be in Canton as well, because
we'll see.
I actually don't think that you can mention today's modern NFL in the last 5 to 8 years without bringing up the cheetah. He literally did define what we currently see as the modern NFL like iteration of what we're seeing, the spread offense at the NFL level, because he kind of defined what the speedster should look like. And like, as much as it pains me to say, because
it was like backyard football, man, watching them. It was just
Tyreek Hill is like the modern day Cliff Branch is what it is.
Yeah. And he's just
Way asked the question. I just want to just tell him we're doing positional players, bro.
Yeah.
We're doing but Raider Way, we're doing positional rankings. Thank you for joining the show. Much appreciated. Salute to you.
Yeah.
You Way's my brother.
I think we can do this real quick. Everybody pick just one player real quick that you're excited for this season.
This season? Sure.
Yeah, just one player real quick. No explanation. Let's just do it, and then we'll move on. Because I think we should answer this question.
Sure, I agree.
All right. Way is my brother, I see him on all the shows. I'm going to say you've got to go Genty. Our number 6 pick. I mean, boom. Drop the mic.
Me, I'll go second. I'm excited for Tyler Conklin, who I'm going to talk about in a second, the free agent tight end they brought in.
I'm going to have to go with RJ Harvey.
Boom. There you go, Raider Way. Oh, shit. Look who it is.
The Piano Man.
Oh, my God. He showed up. Oh, my. Where Piano Man, where were you in the beginning when there was 90% of the people in the chat were like Raider fans?
Piano Man, as an aside, you were living rent-free in Jack's head for sure.
Piano Man, I've never met you, but I've heard a lot about you.
Yes, so you are definitely living rent-free in Jack Kenna's head for sure. So obviously this is a 3-team or a 4-team ultimately when we get a KC guy here back show. Understand you are a Chargers fan. DZ has
but lived in Raider shows.
Well, that's fine. It is what it is. But obviously interested in your take on what DZ has said. So just to confirm, Jack, can you quickly give me a rundown of the tight end room so that Piano Man can hear what you have to say? Because I'm sure he's going to
let's finish it out. I'm glad Piano Man's here. I've been telling him for a while, this is the show for you, bro. So Piano Man, instead of kicking you out in Raider Chat, salute to you. I'm glad that you're here because this is a platform where you have a voice and you can say whatever you want. Say anything you want about your Chargers. Okay, well, as long as it's respectful.
Yeah.
We still have the respect here. It's like this may be an AFC West show, but we never get hatred or anything like that to each other's
try
team.
And get through the stuff. So
let's get through this, man.
Yeah, all right, then let me finish up. I'll make it easy. Okay. Right. So I said Chargers number 4 for tight ends. Then I said Denver. Then I said KC just because of Kelsey, gold jacket, and it's obvious, and it's purely obvious. I mean, if anyone says anything different, I'm going to be completely shocked. When you got Brock Bowers and Michael Mayers on your team, Brock Bowers breaking every rookie record, almost pretty much every record last year, and was actually second as a tight end to the NFL Rookie of the Year and breaking records from 60 years ago from the Bears head coach. And then you got a great number 2 in Michael Mayers, who the Raiders traded up in the early second round to get. That is definitely those two alone. I don't need to mention anyone else. Bottom line, bear none, best tight end room in the NFL, not the AFC West, the NFL.
And usually teams carry what we're assuming 4 tight ends on a roster. We're not counting practice squad. So we're saying, hey, on your 53, this team is bringing in 3 to 4 guys on the 53. That's what we're judging right now. FY to the chat. Richie, did you already go?
Mhm.
You did. Damn. How did I black out to that?
Quick summary. My order, because you were making fun of the fact that I inserted KC at the very end as number 2 rather than
Oh,
going in
okay.
proper
Yes.
order.
Yes. Real quick.
I had Raiders, Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers.
You know, and I definitely agree. If I were to on the 53, I'm going to put the Raiders. I really like Brock. I actually was super high on Michael Mayer.
So was I.
You know, I hope he can work out his mental health stuff because that's real. Big. I was hoping to God the Chargers were going to get him a couple drafts ago. Chiefs, I think it's number 2, Kelsey. I mentioned some of the guys they brought in free agency, but I'm a big fan of Noah Gray. I like him as well. I think that's the guy that takes over for Kelsey once Kelsey hangs up the cleats. Or
yeah, I think he's good too.
Or maybe they draft another guy. Now, this is where I'm like between the Broncos and Chargers. I'm really excited about Tyler Conklin coming to LA. This guy doesn't drop balls. He is a seam stretcher, and I'm really happy that they got him. And then Will Dissly was asked to do things that he's never done in his career and be a safety blanket for Justin Herbert. Now, he did screw up in the playoffs. It happens, man. This last playoffs, everybody wants to forget what happened. But it's going to be Tyler Conklin, Will Dissly, and then they brought in Rondé Gaston, who is a speedster hybrid, like wide receiver tight end. But then Broncos brought in Evan Ingram, who I was really hoping they would sign. You know,
dude, I didn't want the Broncos to sign Ingram. He's good. I want him to go anywhere else besides your team or KC.
I'm going to do this kind of how I did with a previous position group. I'm going to go Raiders, Chiefs, and then I'm going to do a tie between the Broncos and Chargers because I just can't put one or the other above each other. Like, I know you guys are all down on the Chargers tight ends, but I don't think you're familiar with Will Dissly, how he was one of the best blocking tight ends in the league for years.
I never said I was down on them.
And then Tyler Conklin, who just doesn't drop balls, catches balls, can play at X or line up in line, but he's better as an off the line tight end, but he could play online. So I have that. But as a room as a whole for filling out, I would give the slight edge to the Broncos just because, you know, behind those two that I mentioned with the Chargers, Rondé Gaston or whatever is, you know, he's a hybrid wide receiver essentially. He's just a big dude. And then you have Tucker Fisk, who's like a fullback. And then there's a guy, Steven Kroll, who is listed as a tight end, but is really been shining as a fullback. And this guy has made catches. He's definitely a Harbaugh guy. He's made like 4 or 5 catches in camp. He's going to be fighting Scott Matlock for that fullback role. And I'm excited to see this guy because he's a different breed of human, but we're just going to have to wait till these pads come on. I think that's when this show is going to have a lot more juice in it, is once we see these pads come on and see these players actually hit one another, because I think it's going to separate. That's when the cream's going to rise to the top. You know what I mean?
This is crazy. This is the first position group we all 100% agreed on. Like you said, tie, but a slight edge.
Did tie, but
you said a slight edge. So then that means you got the Broncos at 3.
Jack,
so we're all in agreement.
California there, and basically couldn't pick anything. So, you know,
I'm not in California.
I know you're not in California now.
Oh.
But I'm saying you did your best. You did one. You're from there, and 2, you did your best impersonation of your home state. So let's just call a duck, and that's coming from a Canadian. Okay, so let's just let's be fair. So
Piano Man. Loneal is a dog, one of my favorite players, but I think he has CTE, so I don't think but Matt Money carries the show. Just letting you know. Matt Money carries that pod. I'm a big Matt Money guy. Love Loneal, but I don't think I don't think the wheels, I think they need to be greased, but he was one of the best fullbacks of all time forever, so there's that.
Yeah.
Anyways,
So
all right.
I just think in the interest of time, we should kind of do the totality of our offensive lines to finish off the kind of
let's do it.
rankings here.
I think that's a good place to call it too. Anyways, and then we'll do defense next week.
Yeah,
wait, did we do O lines or are we doing O lines?
No, do O lines now.
We're going to do
that's the last thing left.
We're going to do the totality of the offensive line rather than positional groups.
Okay.
Kind of round it out more fully. So I'll go my order here. I have Chargers number 1 in offensive line. I have Broncos number 2, Chiefs number 3, and Raiders number 4. Reason why I shifted things around there, I think in terms of what people may have expected. Number 1, I think the Kansas City Chiefs made some appropriate moves to re-bolster their offensive line. That being said,
that's Simmons pick,
man. That being said,
Simmons.
I do think that they struggled last year in pass protection and run blocking a little bit. And so the question is whether or not those guys can properly gel together with the new acquisitions and the old line to kind of re-elevate themselves. I think that's a fair critique. Number 2, I think that the Chargers have the best tackles or blindside protectors in the division. And I also think that the Chargers have competent guards, although I think that their center position is still a question mark.
Yeah,
and that's a thing to potentially perhaps swap the Broncos and the Chargers, which I think is fair. But I am, as everyone knows, I'm a trenches guy, and I live for the trenches on both offense and defense. I have major issues with my Denver Broncos offensive line still. I need to see bigger and better play from them in order to truly be able to rank my offensive line higher than number 2. I just think that the Chargers did the right thing by getting guys in the right spots when they did. And I think that the Broncos are fluttering but excelling because of the head coach's football acumen. I think that the players themselves that the Broncos have are actually not as good as their record shows or their ranking showed. I just think that my offensive head coach, who is elite in that regard, has covered up a lot of issues with what he's done and how he's done it. I think ultimately my Denver Broncos could be a lot better if we made some better improvements on the line. However, this is a totality. This is everything all worked together. And I believe that our swing tackles help elevate my Broncos offensive line because 1 or 2 of them will make the roster. And I think there's 3 of them that we currently have that are NFL caliber swing tackles on my roster right now, including 2 UDFAs. And I think that is a rare thing for a team to have such an embarrassment of riches at the offensive tackle position that are as good as they could be or are. So I think it's going to be an interesting one. That's kind of my take on the offensive line. So just again, real quick, so that you guys can kind of either rip that apart or completely agree. I have Chargers number 1, Broncos number 2, Chiefs number 3, Raiders number 4.
Jack, can I go next?
Yeah, go for it, bro.
All right. Richie, I like your list. I'm going to go from 4 to 1. And I've got Chiefs number 4. I think, unless
I can totally see that. Yeah.
I've got Chiefs number 4, and Fatty Patty has gotten a lot bigger, and let's hope he stays that way because
Dad Bod Mahomes, is that what you're calling him?
Dad Bob, yeah. I mean, we're all working on it. Yeah. We're all working on it. Yeah. I'm doing the best Fatty Patty impression.
Sorry, real quick. You know what my buddy in college said? He said, I upgraded from a 6-pack to a keg.
Yeah, man. Look, he's thinking glass half full.
Yeah.
Your buddy is a great guy.
Yeah.
But if that Josh Simmons pick works out, that's one hell of a steal. And I think it's going to work out because modern medicine is a thing. And that's the reason why he slid is everybody was scared about, oh my God, his knee. Piano Man, salute. You're welcome back, brother. Spread the word.
Yeah, Piano,
Jack Hennis,
you're welcome here, man.
Jack Hennis is a big fan of you. He's got a room set up for you in the back. So number 3, I got the Raiders. I'm a big JPJ guy. I love his attitude.
JPG is
And
awesome.
effing stud. And then I'm also a big fan of Meredith, their guard. I think that guy is freaking underrated and is also a stud. Like, holy hell, they got 2 dudes. Genty is going to – I foresee a lot of, A or B gap kind of stuff for Genty. And then Glaze, not a slouch, pretty decent. This is going to be a really decent O-line for what Geno does well. If Geno feels that pressure, he's gonna extend the play by using his legs. I think the Raiders are going the right direction with their O-line. And then for number 3, I have the Chargers. I think we do have the best tackles.
Yeah, you mean number 2 then?
No, sorry, you're right, Jack. Thank you. The Colorado Kool-Aids are speaking. As number 2, those tackles are Rashawn Slater. Caveat: he hasn't signed, but this is something the Chargers do, is they don't do these big signings till late in the summer. But mandatory OTAs are starting next week, and if he doesn't show up, that's $15,000 a day. So we'll see if he shows up on Tuesday. Rashawn Slater is one of my favorite players, FYI. And I'm going to make this quick. There's a guy in one of my group chats who buys these mystery boxes. A lot of teams do this every year, right? They're like, you buy a mystery box, they send you signed stuff. Well, he got duplicates. I guess he bought a bunch of these. And he got a Rashawn Slater signed jersey, navy blue one, and a Spiller jersey, who Spiller's no longer a running back, but the Chargers had high hopes for him. He's selling them to me for $60. And that's what I was doing on the chats, because we're trying to do things. So I'm getting 2 jerseys. Well, plus shipping, it's like $88 or whatever. He's sending me from Texas. But they're both signed. And I'm like, the Spiller's just a bonus, so whatever. But I was like ecstatic to get signed Rashawn Slater.
Yeah.
And
that's awesome.
I think I mentioned this, and it's well known through the internet, and it sucks to go on these guys' things. But look, this is our show. We do our stuff for the Wild Wild West. He did go through a divorce. I guess I think it went through, and he just got married just a few years ago. So he's going to get paid a hell of a lot of money, because there's no way they let this guy walk. He is a stud. And then another thing with Joe Alt was so down after that Houston game. He watched every snap last season to try to figure out how to get better. Mind you, this kid was only 21. He's a rookie right tackle who is projected to be a left tackle. He is going to grow into that body. People are raving like, dude, this guy is on the right track to be a, long time right tackle or whatever you need him to be.
What's up, Purpo?
And then they brought in Mekhi Becton, who I'm cautious about because he's a large human. Mekhi Becton, hey, salute Furpo, thank you. Yeah, you and Piano Man can go at it. But
no, yeah, it's funny, dude. The Raider Nation knows Piano Man because he goes on all the shows.
I'm just meeting this guy tonight, so hey, our cherries are getting popped tonight. Mine is, at least. But and then I was high on when they brought in Andre James. I know a lot of Raider fans are like, "Ha, you guys got Andre James."
No, he's solid, dude. He's solid. He's just a little light in the ass. He's like, 290, 300 as a center. So,
so as of late, I might have been a little too high on him because he's been taking third team snaps.
Really?
And yes, because they really want to make this Zion to center a thing. So it's been Zion and Bozeman going back and forth with number ones to see who's going to be the center. And kind of makes sense because Zion's a first round, draft pick, albeit at guard from Boston College. But if he can move to center and things slow down for him, and it works, that would be one hell of a thing for them to work out. But I'm still very skeptical of that interior pressure, especially on that left side coming through, which really showed up against Houston. But at number one, I got the Broncos. The Broncos were the number one offensive line last season statistically until the Philadelphia Eagles carried away and went to the Super Bowl because, there's stat padding.
Yeah.
But for the scheme that the Broncos run, it makes sense. It makes sense for the scheme. I know that, Richie, you've talked about the Broncos, no linemen being a little lighter, but for what you guys run with that Peyton scheme with a lot of screens, a lot of pulling guards and stuff, it makes sense for them to be a little more athletic opposed to, say, Mekhi Becton, 6'8" or whatever, 7,000 pounds. But I still have the Broncos number one, and I think that with a guy like they brought in RJ Harvey, it's only going to help, and I don't see them losing it. I know you might be concerned with your center position, right?
Well, I'm huge on Frank Crum. I really think that he's the answer there, in my opinion. He's a big boy, moves bodies, excellent in the run game, needs to develop a little bit more in the pass game. But like I said on last week's show, actually, I'm fine with a guy that needs work in the pass game because you can't really teach the mental mindset required in the run game. It's kind of
I think we were opposite on that, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we were opposite on that.
And I look at what's happened with Quinn Miners. Quinn Miners was trash in the pass pro game. Sorry, he was awful. He was like the worst pass pro guard I've ever seen in his first game, first like little block there. And then he came out and like, okay, fine, we're gonna run the ball. And then he just bulldozed dudes, and it's like, oh. and then, but come his second year, he made massive leaps forward. And by his third year, he was like alternate all-pro. So as long as you get a guy who's got the mental mindset of I will always get better and I will improve, I promise. I would much rather have a guy that has the mental mindset of I'm going to plow the other guy over on the other side of the ball than a guy that's like, I'm going to daintily try to keep the guy from touching the quarterback.
And I can see, I'm
not laughing at you guys. I'm laughing at the chat.
Oh, Jesus, Jack. I can see there's a caveat to this. This O-line that they tried to build last season, now they're in year two. I can see this O-line for the LA Chargers being a lot better if it's a more run-heavy,
right?
More of a run-heavy. Because this is who Bozeman was. These guys aren't pass blockers, per se. And this is where they struggled, in my opinion, because they struggle with stunts. These guys need to move people. And I'm not saying because not Joel, but Rashawn Slater is an amazing pass blocking left tackle, and that's what you need, right? You need a guy who can stand back there by himself and go after. Usually, it's your number one or your number two pass rusher, right? Because I know Max doesn't go over there. Max goes went over the rook side, with Joe. So, I think the scheme with this running back room can potentially elevate this line to be number one, but as of right now, I can't put them number one. That's still the Broncos, in my opinion, because it fits their scheme so well. And I really think RJ Harvey is going to really help that offensive line, and they're going to mesh well. And I think the Chargers. But look, man, I am super high on the Raiders. I think the Raiders O-line, they've got a couple really good pieces, and JPJ being one of them, and Meredith and Glaze, and Kappa. You guys really, that was probably the worst thing, and that guy needs to be kicked to the curb. I don't know why you guys brought him in, but other than that,
I'll talk about that.
That's amazing. I'm higher on them than I am with the Chiefs.
And I agree with both you guys. I mean, you guys both made great takes, and I agree with a lot of what you guys said. So I'm just like, man, I got to piggyback off this shit you guys make, and I don't want to try to duplicate it all. And I'm going to go KC, number 4. And in our mock draft, who was my second round pick? It was Simmons. I think the guy's going to be a beast. He, like DZ, you said he dropped due to injury. I totally 100% agree with that. I think he's going to be awesome. But when you lose a guy like Joe Tooney, going to, trade him to the Bears for like a 4th round draft pick.
Super
okay,
weird.
Well, then you gave up that, that interior all pro left guard. So, I mean, you got one and you had to give one up. Does it really make your line, that much better, especially in year one? I don't know. I mean, Joe Tooney is like a vet. He's been doing it for, like a decade. So I don't see that line really improving. And I love their right guard. He was like one of my number one targets if they didn't franchise tag him.
Same.
I thought he was a stud. So, man, I still have to put them at number 4. I got the Raiders at number 3. And again, these is kind of things that you said. I think, Colton Miller, last year he was coming back from injury.
Damn it. Thank you.
He's been a stalwart for, again, a decade, and he plays exceptionally well. He's always in, the top half of the, the NFL for left tackles. And, he finally got his health back after being injured and sat out for most of, the half of last year and the year before. And it took him some time to, dust the rust off, but he's solid. Meredith, again, TFF, we all got to give it.
Yeah, grain of
salt. So, but Meredith was like, wow, dude, he impressed me. And, that guy came for the cheap too. And I do like him a lot. So I'm glad they brought him back. JPJ, of course, man, that guy's going to be all pro. He's probably one of the best centers in the NFL right now, bar none. So I'm super happy about that. So the right guard, Parham's already lost a spot to Kappa, and he's like right now challenging, Meredith for the left guard. But I don't even think, Spytek coming from Tampa Bay, when Kappa was with Tampa Bay, played exceptionally well. That's why he got that huge contract with Cincinnati. And he just stunk it up with Cincinnati. And, signing him to a 2-year, $11 million deal, you're paying him $5.5 million a year. Well, if you don't show it, dude, you're going to be gone real quick, because they drafted 2 third-round, linemen in Rodgers and Grant. So Rodgers is like, he's a dog, dude. He's like 6'8", like 320. And he didn't even want to, he knew he was going to come out in the NFL draft. He's like, no, I'm playing the Senior Bowl. So he's a football player. He has C on his chest. So he's got that dog mentality. So if Kappa doesn't do it, through training camp, then his ass is going to go. Grant is like, a tackle. Nasty. So got JPJ mentality, but he came from a small school, which I don't hold that against the guys. You got to play against, better competition, but he's got that nasty mentality, which they could say move him into guard. And then we talked about the rugby player, Lockie Tassi. And what, this just came out like a week ago. They're not going to use Lockie Tassi like we thought. We thought they were going to use him as a nose tackle. They're moving him over to guard is what they're going to do. Not that going to say he's going to play this year, because he's raw. He's never played the NFL, just done rugby. But a mammoth of the man who's 6'6", and like 348 pounds. And so they're going to groom him. And then you've got DJ Glaze, who was a 3rd-round draft pick last year. Not great against, doing the run, but he's good against the pass.
Yeah, he seems a little light, right, Jack? DJ?
No, he's not light. He's in the 320s.
There was something, because I agree with you. Like, he seemed to be a better pass blocker than a run blocker, though.
He is. That's why they drafted him. He's got the long arms.
Yeah,
and he was like the biggest surprise pick, that year. That was a pick I hated. The whole draft. It's like,
I remember
all the ratings were saying he was a 6th-round draft pick, and they took him in the 3rd round. And the whole nation was up in arms, like, well, what the hell are we doing? But after seeing him,
he was a starter, right, Jack? He was a starter for you guys.
He was. So he took over Thayer Mumford, who was our starter. He went down with injury, and he never gave up the position. Yeah. So I'm glad that happens, but but he's not an all-star. Let's just say that. He's not an all-star. He still has a lot to learn and so forth.
I think your interior is a lot better than your tackles. Your interior is really good.
Well, that's our problem is actually the interior.
I don't see that this season.
Well, with Parham, Parham only being, he started off as left guard, played some games as center when James went down. Then he moved over to right guard when they drafted JPJ, and they put JPJ at left guard. And then when James got hurt again, they moved him over to center and then stayed where he's at. So they're trying to find a position for Parham. It's his last year. So I feel like after this season, he's going to walk. He's going to be gone. But they got to replace with him. When you get 2 third-round draft picks, when you draft a third-round draft pick, you expect him to be a starter. So, and I agree with both of you guys on this, man. I will say this is almost like the wide receivers. So, and again, I love what, Richie's team had. They were the 3rd ranked offensive line last year. There's not like a superstar on that offensive line.
1. And then they went to 3.
Yeah, but I mean, and it's number 3. I mean, that shocked me. I mean, like I was blown away. That offensive line didn't scare me at all.
I was surprised as well.
What they did, though, was very impressive in the way of what the coach would do, get the ball out quick.
Yeah.
And they impressed. It's like, Richie talked about, again, a player I liked at Notre Dame in McGlinchey. Like, Richie's like, he's good against the run, but not good against the pass. And I liked that kid, when he was playing right tackle at Notre Dame. And I'm like, okay, well, I think he's pretty solid, man. He went to signed for the team with the big contract, got drafted early. Actually, the Raiders wanted McGlinchey back when John Gruden was on the team, and they had a tie with the Niners, and they did a coin flip. So here was the trade. So the Niners at number 9 took McGlinchey. The Raiders traded number 10 pick to go back to number 15 with the Arizona Cardinals and grabbed an extra 3rd, and that's when they picked up Colton Miller. They came out the same year. So 1A, 1B for coming out of that draft. So, I mean, you've got to give that respect to the Broncos offensive line for sure. But at the same time, you have my boy Joe Alt, who's another Notre Dame guy, actually one of my favorite players coming from Notre Dame, and just watching his very first game against Max Crosby. 11 challenges, 0 pressures, 0 sacks. And that's why I always ask the question, man, are they going to move him over to the left side? This kid is a beast.
No, he's going to stay on the right side. But,
yeah,
I like, Max against Max. Let's wrap this up. But, go back to Joel real quick yeah, man, like he was great against Max. I don't know if he was doing anything, but in that playoff game, whatever Houston did,
right,
they had his number, man. So
let me finish this up and we'll get off since it's my turn. So again, you got an all-pro left tackle. You basically got an all-pro right tackle. You picked up Beckham, who's like 6'4", 6'5".
6'8".
What, 3? He's 6'8". I think he's like 6'4", 6'5". And he's like 350 pounds.
Joe Alt 6'9".
Right? So he's a huge player. And, okay, you just said James. I'm like, man, I like James, what you had over last year. But again, if they want to move Zion there, so that offensive line super improved. I mean, I can go either way with the Broncos or the Chargers. On my piece of paper that I wrote down last week, I had the Chargers number 1. But I also have arrows going back and forth. Either one of those offensive lines could be the best in the AFC West.
Yeah. And, I know this whole show, and we'll wrap out. It's like 2 seconds. I know this whole show, we kind of – I'm not saying we shit on the Chiefs. I think we all are tired of them, and one of our teams needs to take that spot because I think what the Chiefs are doing is kind of historic right now, how they've had a run on this division for 9 seasons or whatever the hell it is, and how many Super Bowls. Or I think Mahomes has 18 playoff wins or something. It's just insane, man. And that just shows how serious our division has gotten. I've seen in every one of your guys' teams, and especially my team, it's like the owners just woke up one day and are going, oh, shit, we need to figure this out. Like, and Mark finally woke up, right? And Dean and the John Spanos finally woke up, and then in Denver, they got some serious guys. They brought in Sean, but with the Chiefs, with their O-line and with everything that go on, it seems like they're going down. And I think we did this like 2 years ago or last season, as I was like in the chats, and it's like they come out of nowhere, right? So I hope that's not the case this season. I honestly don't is that we've got to pummel these guys. Like, we got to do something. It's going to start week 1 in Brazil, Chargers Chiefs, but
yeah,
we've got to handle these guys.
I agree. So I do think that all of our teams got better this offseason. I think that the Raiders have made the first step in their journey to re-elevating their team, and I do think it's going to be a journey. I think it's going to be much like the Chargers are going through, and I think that the Broncos are kind of just like 1 year just ahead, just because we kind of made those decisions and those moves with the new ownership group, just a little bit ahead of the rest of the division, which is fine. It's still a fact, but it's fine. And I think ultimately the AFC West, as we kind of continue forward, is going to be just a gauntlet within a division, just because you have the experience at the head coach position, which is one of the hardest kind of things to solidify and keep consistent for over a long haul and a long period of time, which I think we can mutually all agree to. Next week, guys, we are going to break down the defense and comparative rankings of each of our teams, which will be super cool. I really like it. We are going to break down and separate out things like defensive line, interior,
safeties, cornerbacks,
corners, that kind of stuff. That'll be super cool. Looking forward
to throw in special teams if you want. I don't know.
Oh, we got to throw in special teams.
Yeah, special teams I think we'll toss in there as well on the defensive side of the ball, just because I think it'll be kind of interesting and frankly just 3 positions. But next week we're going to have some more information for you, some more rankings and some more details. So those of you in the chat, bring your comments with us, and we'll go right into those details.
Hey, and nice meeting you, Piano Man. I've heard all about you.
I want to see you back, Piano Man, next week.
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
Yeah, Piano Man.
You can follow us on X. We do post the show as well as the link to the channel to come join us. Or if you've subbed to Captain Jack's channel, you'll be notified of that as well. And everyone else who is joining us after the fact, we get about 50 to 60% of our viewers that come once the show has closed out. For those of you who are joining us after the fact, click that like button, please. Really appreciate it. It helps us show out and reach more AFC
push
West
this algorithm.
It helps the algorithm out and all that sort of thing. And then also, if you have any comments that you just kind of feel that, you weren't able to join live, but leave those comments down below in the video if you agree or disagree with our rankings and why, and we will do our best to go ahead and interact with those after the show. Ladies and gentlemen, until next week, where the West Side's the best side, and we will cover the defensive side of all of our teams next. Peace!
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute, work hard for the car, so that's why it's all tinted. Wait a minute, had a real late night, woke up.